Ansokanyanize abalabi ba gafa mu bwengula Salongo Kigundu nga bulijjo mu masekati ga America weekend olwaleero 23 mwezi guno gwokuna mu Luganda tukuyita tutya kozi tuli wano ku Lwasande ng'ensonga etuleese wano ya Yuna Yuna omutwe gugambye nti Ensassage mu Nsiike ya Yuna naye ekyebuzibwa nti yabaffe Ensiike eno ddala Nsiike weri oba twogereko bwogezi kubanga ne Electoral Commission tenaba kutugamba kintu kyonna kasirise kye wabula abantu abalina interest mu kwagala okukulembera Yuna ate kati bo be batubunye emiwabo baba no bali Kampala bonna beeyo ba meeting ono ba meeting oli era mwe mwavudde nze kyempise Ensassage.
Okay. Naye tukaba tuweza kutafuna message bulungi.
Right. What do you think is happening though?
I have no idea.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Kale, kakati. Mbadde nzigulawo nga ngamba. Nti headline yaffe egambye nti Ensassage mu Nsiike ya Yuna nze bwe nagiyise kubanga twali tuli awo mu mitimbagano wano nga abeesimbyewo bwe tubayita oba oli awo baalaze nti balina interest mu kwesimbawo kubanga Electoral Commission tennaba kuvaayo kufuwa endagiriro yonna kuba qualifyinga nti ono yayiseewo wabula bakyali ku expression of interest bakoze dda teams ono n'oli mubaddemu n'ali independent kakati bwe tutukidde wano ku ssaawa ya leero nga Kampala eri bonna gye baagenze waliyo amawulire agavuddeyo ebifaananyi bivuddeyo ne biraga nti omu ku beesimbyewo yabadde ne mu kafubo n'omujaasi wa UPDF kati omujaasi wa UPDF oyo ate nga ye mutabani w'omukulembeze gw'eggwanga omwami Yoweri Kaguta Museveni najja asuula Ensassage mu ttiimu eno yadde ekuŋŋaanya engereko omwami Muvawala agamba nti ekyo kikafuwe bwe mbanga muli mu kafubo n'omwami oyo nze mbivuddemu ngenze independent kati awo ensinzidde ne ŋŋamba nti katutunulire ensonga eno tulabe kiki ddala kitegeeza kikino mu kunnyonnyola mwami Ogwang afulumizza ekiwandiiko ekitugamba nti kyannaku nnyingi nti munneewe gwabadde akoze naye ttiimu bw'ati bw'asazeewo naye agamba nti nze Kampala eno gyendi meetinze n'abantu ab'enjawulo abayise ba stakeholders ekitegeeza nti noono omujaasi wa UPDF naye stakeholder kati nange nzaaweevu ne buuzizizza nti stake y'omujaasi ono mu diaspora eriki yabaffe who is a stakeholder ani alina stake mu diaspora tukinnyonnyola kitya ne ŋŋamba ti kaŋŋende eno mu mambuka g'e Canada noonyeeyo omukugu w'ebintu bino akitutemeretemeremu oba oli awo tunaakinnyonnyoka nsanyusa okukulaba mwami Sali weebale kujja mu studio wano mangu.
It's a pleasure joining Mr. Kigundu ekiriwo kati. Most people call you ekiriwo kati bakuyita Tukikube and others call you so many different names which cannot your work as a renowned journalist, even though you haven't gone to school to get that degree. You should probably go to school and get that designation as well, right? Because so I think it's important. Some people are talented and they end up doing really well in different things. So, preamble, there are so many questions you're asking. You say Ensassage mu Nsiike ya Yuna. Then you questioned if this Nsiike ya Yuna is even established by the Electoral Commission, because apparently you haven't had anything from the Electoral Commission. I don't think that's a question for me. That should be a question for the Yuna Council, which is supposed to approve the current or the presiding Electoral Commission. I think they're working on that, and as soon as they have approved the new membership of the Electoral Commission, I'm confident that whoever will be approved as a member of the Electoral Commission will work on the guidelines that will guide the election. So for now, I think these are expressions of interests. There is no candidate, in my opinion, actually. I don't think there's any confirmed candidate for any position. So I think the conversations can continue going ahead until everyone is confirmed that they are the candidates for their respective positions, but presidency, but vice presidency, but secretary, never treasurers. That will be determined by the Electoral Commission once it is established. Never confirming until the goal you're running you're contesting for president and you're contesting for vice president and the respective positions in Gawezija. I don't know, what are stakeholders? So, of course, that aside, the Electoral Commission aside, and the confirmation of candidates, of course, there's this conversation going on. I am expressing interest to run for president, says Mr. Patrick Ogwang. Of course, there's also another team, a parallel team from Mr. Lambert as well, who also has a team. These are two strong teams. The conversation has been very interesting so far, and I think people are enjoying the conversation. Of course, when you talk about, when you ask me about stakeholders, then of course we need to interrogate what that term means. Who is a stakeholder?
That's right. Who is a stakeholder? In the diaspora. This is an election in the diaspora.
It is an election in the diaspora, right?
Yeah.
In simple terms, in very basic definitions, in regard to the Constitution of UNA, we could argue that the stakeholders are the registered members, right? Those are the people who are going to cast their ballots.
Ultimately.
But you could also argue that actually stakeholders are not just the registered voters, but also their friends in the diaspora who may not be able to come to vote, but will influence their decisions or how they end up in Dallas, because I know it's going to be in Dallas this time, right? So if you're talking about friends and family who can influence people's decisions, then it's not just the friends here. Perhaps it is also friends in Uganda, because we are Ugandans. We could also argue that some of these business entities that the current executive has been working with to secure partnerships for the organization are also stakeholders, right? So
that's right. All stakeholders.
Yeah. So then the stakeholders, we can ask ourselves: are those the only people who vote, or other people who could potentially influence how the election
will come
proceeds, out, evolves.
Okay.
So when this guy, by the way,
Patrick Ogwang.
Mr. Patrick Ogwang, for me, what was interesting is how he has reintroduced himself in this press release. In my opinion, I think first and foremost is taking ownership of the picture that came out.
Right.
But also what I think is that this guy, what happened to...
you know, you froze. Kati ogenda kuddayo.
Am I the only one who froze when I was freezing?
No, nze nasigaddewo gwe no freezing. Kati okomyewo.
Oh, okay.
So wabadde kati ddayo wali wagambye nti kirabika nga Patrick Ogwang, Mr. Patrick Ogwang, in his statement, in press release, he seemed to have realized and owned the impression or whatever image this created.
Right. Okay, so I think, in my opinion, I think whoever is strategizing for Mr. Ogwang is trying to be very, very smart about this press release. Because he starts by reintroducing himself as Patrick Ogwang, as if no one knows who he is, right? Of course, everyone. I could argue that most of the people who are going to vote within the union establishment, or stakeholders, are registered. Chances are that most of them already know who this guy is because he has been around, right? He has worked for the organization. He has run for president before. He has been around. The question then becomes, why is he reintroducing himself in a press release that is supposed to explain the picture that has been circulating the social media, right? And I think, and I could be completely wrong, by reintroducing himself as whatever he is, right?
Yeah.
He is pretty much doubling down on his campaign. This is a campaign. I'm going to double down on this campaign. So he's doubling down on his campaign. He's reintroducing himself. He's talking about the theme of his campaign and the goal for his campaign to proceed. Right? Then around the fourth paragraph, he starts explaining the picture, which he doesn't really go in detail to, but he tells us that one of the reasons that that picture appears in the media space right now is because he has met so many other stakeholders. But we don't really care if you have been meeting so many other stakeholders. What we really care about is for you to tell us about this picture, right?
Exactly.
Moreover, he doesn't mention which other stakeholders, right? But he's telling us about so many other stakeholders, right? And then he tells us that one of the reasons that we talked a lot about was the release of all political prisoners.
Exactly. Now, let me pose a question there.
We don't know what they talked about until there's any sort of result that comes out of those conversations, or out of that picture, or out of the conversations that have been transpiring in the diaspora for the last 24 hours. We cannot prove what he's saying, right? What is important, I think, and I think this is what most stakeholders should think about. And when I say stakeholders, in my opinion, I'm thinking about the voters. That's what I'm thinking about. I think what people should pay much attention to is why, for so long, the MK project hasn't been prominent in the diaspora. And if by having these conversations, we are making it prominent, does it mean that we are now paying attention to the MK project?
Suddenly,
are we
prime time, even Tukikube is having the same conversation. Now, all of a sudden, could we have fallen into a trap of some kind?
We could have been fallen into a trap. So then you ask yourself a question. Was this strategic for Mr. Ogwang to release these pictures? Is he the one who actually released these pictures? Because there's two wins right now, if we are to count wins. Number one, the diaspora is paying attention to the MK project. Number two, Mr. Ogwang is in the news. He has been in the news for the last 24 hours, constantly. Something he hasn't been able to do since he declared his presidency.
Wow. I didn't think
we haven't been able to talk about him for 24 hours. But like when you look at the WhatsApp, all the WhatsApp groups in North America, they're talking about that picture. Even Bobby Wine is in North America, but no one is talking about him. Like there are very few people who are talking about the events that he has been to. Like most of the conversation is surrounding Mr. Mubawala, Mr. Ogwang, and MK project.
Right? Have we been
trapped? The question then becomes, have we been trapped? Right? So, and if one of the suggestions that Ogwang had with MK in their meeting was that I am going to make you known, prominent in the diaspora, if that's one of the arguments he made in his conversations, he has succeeded. And where does that put us? Yeah, where does this put us as people in the diaspora? Is this a conversation we should be having right now?
No, we shouldn't. I mean, we were not having it up until yesterday.
Exactly. What having it until yesterday? So was it strategic? Have we been trapped? Have we like fallen into a trap? And what does that mean for the future of that project? Because now when you start looking at following MK's movements, you start seeing that even on his international trips now, I think he went to Rwanda recently, and he went with Mr. Muhwezi. He has never traveled with Mr. Muhwezi before, right? Muhwezi is in the inner circle of the people who started the revolution. So when Muhwezi starts working for international trips with Mr. Muhwezi, what signal is he sending? Both to the international community, but also to elites at home, right?
Yeah.
And is it a coincidence that all this is happening now?
Look, even the question that came right into my mind while you're speaking was the explanation of here. This is among what we talked about. This stakeholder is these people in prison and how they need to be released and all of that. Now, that seemed to have appeared after Muvawala's statement, which was, I don't care about this MK thing. All I need from them is the release of my people and all of that. Who is playing into that? I mean, this seems to have followed. Yeah.
Interesting that you brought up that Mr. Muvawala's reaction to that.
That immediate reaction off the cuff. Some people think he hurried up. He moved too fast. He should have waited to see what's going on. But this was his reaction, and the press release came out to explain Muvawala's reaction.
Right, and that's very, very critical actually. If Mr. Muvawala, because think about it this way. Mr. Ogwang, for the longest time, has been telling people in the diaspora that my job is not just to restore the organization, the 35-year-old organization, but also to rebuild and unite the diaspora, right? So, and I believe that's one of the reasons Mr. Muvawala accepted to be on his team, because when you look at his team, there are people from the FDC, there was Mr. Muvawala who was from NUP, there are also other people from different colors, right? When Mr. Ogwang writes up a press statement telling us that one of the aspects of their conversations surrounded the release of all political prisoners, Ngamwami Muvawala atugambye the only reason he would need MK and NRM is to release NUP prisoners who are put in prison for nothing, right?
Is that a negotiation of some kind through statement?
Exactly. Then we start questioning, did these guys have a conversation before? Is this strategic? Is Muvawala moving away to create clout for Mr. Ogwang? Because if you notice, look at all the WhatsApp groups. Mr. Muvawala has not been isolated by Mr. Ogwanga's team. There has not been any announcement that so-and-so is going to replace him as the VP candidate, right? Mr. Muvawala is not all of a sudden saying that I'm stepping away because now I'm going to contest this guy as president.
He just said, I'm going independent. That's all.
I'm going independent, and he's staying in the same position. Meanwhile, Ogwanga's team is not putting anyone replacement to tell us that, this guy is we're actually kicking this guy out anymore. And in his press release, he actually doesn't even mention his name. It says one of our team members. Right? Which means he's still in the fold in some way or another. You know what I mean? Like,
I could
be completely wrong, but I could also be right.
You could be right. You could be right. We just don't know.
We have no idea what's going on. So they need to come out and tell us what's going on. I don't know if they are going to be able to tell us that. So is Mr. Muvawala being continued? Is he being played continuously, or is he playing us as well? Because when he steps aside and says that I'm going independent, but I'm staying in my position as VP. Meanwhile, Tim Ogwang is not putting anyone else in the VP slot. right?
They can
But
always
they
come
say,
back and reconcile, I guess, at some point.
exactly. Even when they don't reconcile, if Mr. Ogwanga's team or Team Ogwang decides that no, let us play it this way because our team member is being pressure is receiving a lot of pressure from his comrades, the NUP comrades, to step away. Let us let him come as an independent, but we're not going to run we're not going to have a candidate for the VP slot. Then they're just playing as the voters, pretty much. You know what I mean? Because think about it this way: who benefits more right now, especially in regard to the United election? Is it Mr. Mubawala or Mr. Ogwang? Because if we interrogate this issue closely, how many NUP people are going to actually buy membership and come to Dallas, especially after the convention is back to back? Yeah, from DC to Dallas. How many members are going to be in DC and then drive or fly to Dallas to vote for Mr. Mubawala?
That's a big
in my opinion, I feel like Mr. Mubawala benefits more from Mr. Ogwang than Mr. Ogwang benefits from Mr. Mubawala. In this aspect.
Why? You think Mr. Mubawala is only base is in Boston? That's it? Or in NUP?
Well, I feel like if his decision was based on NUP pressuring him to step aside, then that's the assumption that I'm going to make.
Okay.
I'm going to make an assumption that perhaps majority of his voters are NUP members, right? Because remember, the contestation in Dallas is between Lambert and Ogwang. Whoever is going to pull off the biggest number of voters
showing up in Dallas.
So showing up in Dallas will win. And when we look at preceding elections, most of the delegates came from Dallas. Majority of voters, people who are in Ohio, majority of voters were from Dallas, right?
Is that so? Now, I hate to talk to you as an electoral commissioner, but that's a data point. So I can go back and pull up that report. You guys made it public. So the largest block of voters came out of Dallas?
The data is public. Go and look at those data points. Who are the most in Chicago? Other than Dallas, the biggest number of delegates came. I think in Chicago, Mr. Omuzimbi engineer got 35 of his votes from Canada. I think, and that was one of the biggest numbers coming from Canada. 35 votes.
That's a huge number.
Right, that's a huge number coming from one
from
place.
Canada.
Yeah, coming from Canada, right? Yeah. But like when you go to Ohio and look at some of the numbers, right? The biggest number of electors came from Dallas. Now that the game is in Dallas itself, which means people in Dallas, or people not just Dallas but Texas. When I say now the biggest number of delegates, I mean Texas as a whole. So Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, right? So most of the voters come from Texas. Texas brings a lot of people to elections, right? So if the game is
a big block,
if the game is between Lambert and Ogwang, and then Mubawala comes in as VP. Unless he's able to convince many NUP supporters to register and come and vote, if he's not able to do that, it's done for him. Like if he's not able to do that, if he's not able to convince his colleagues in Washington, D.C., people who are going to Washington, D.C., that, you know what, guys, if I'm going to win this slot, I need you to go to DC and from DC to Dallas. That way they can bring in as many numbers as possible, right?
Yeah.
Then that's where the game is going to be.
That's where the game is going to be. So, thank you very much. I think we could go on and on with this.
We could,
but as we wrap up, let me ask you this. This our political differences should not be a consideration when we're electing our leaders here in North America. But unfortunately, it still is. I can't be oblivious to it. I don't know
what
we're ever going to do it.
We were having this discussion yesterday on one of the WhatsApp groups. Home is Uganda, and some of the questions were that why would a not-for-profit organization be so political, right?
Why? Any answers emerged out of there? Because that's a big question.
That's a big question. But the reality is that we would be lying to each other if we thought that any activity that involves voting and speaking to people is non-political. I feel like every conversation that involves convincing people to vote for one person over the other becomes political by default, right? Now, if it becomes when it becomes political by default, then other aspects come in. For example, internal interests as well as external interests. Now, internal interest could be all surrounded around UNA as an organization, right? But then UNA does not serve itself. It has some external factors. So those people have external interests, right? So
interest is a key word.
If the executive is going to negotiate with some business entities to come and be participants in during the convention, then those are external interests that you're reaching out to. The people who come to UNA also have interests within UNA, right? So all that is political. Everything, it's not just business. Everything is political.
Got it. I think that's a good explanation. So the only way to eliminate that would be what? Choose another way of electing leaders. Let's take the voting out of the equation.
Take the voting out of the equation. Start selecting leaders if you can, and ensure that they work to serve the people. Right? That's less political, but it's also political in one way or another because we don't know who's going to select those leaders. So think about it this way: when you're sitting at home having dinner with your family, right?
Yeah.
There are certain questions that might arise that become political in their nature.
Yeah. For
instance, you cannot allow your child to sit on a dining table without putting on a shirt, right? Ojamugamba lwaki toyambadde saati genda oyambale saati naye ng'ate mwenna mumumanyi mwana muto talina gwe yeesittaza okitegeera can definitely have his dinner without putting on a shirt. Why do you force him to put on a shirt? That is not just a moral question, it is also a political question.
Never thought about it that way. I thought it was just mpisa tukuyigiza mpisa.
No, it's not just a moral question because bagenda nayambala yellow nga yellow wa mukyala towagira NRM ojja mugamba lwaki otayedeko bi yellow genda oyambala red oba blue okitegeera then it becomes a political question even at the dining table right there. So it becomes very complicated. I think every activity that involves people that think differently becomes a political
contest of some kind. Okay. So neyanziza thank you very much. Kaneme kutwalira budde bungi nange nzireyo wano weekend tugiwunzike naye
tufiiriddwe Toronto wano. I'm going to be omukyala abafiiridde omwana muto nnyo bamuyita Amon Francis tumusiime. Tugenda kubeera ne Zoom video kuva ku ssaawa ng'emu eza wano. So in about 20 minutes from now until late. Yeah, for people in Toronto to feed it, so we are going to be sharing the Zoom link so that you can join for Zoom for the Zoom video. For those who can go on the ground to get about details as well. But Mwami Chigundu, thank you so much for inviting me, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah. So ngogenda. Owekiwe Stella Muyinda yampeereza akalango wano Kabakazi Rwanda gwe simanyi wagitegeddeko naye yampeereza akalango wano agamba nti balinayo emisinde May nga 2 kudduka Kabakazi Rwanda.
Tubeereyo n'emisinde buli May after the Kabaka's birthday. It's of course to celebrate the Kabaka's birthday, but also to kukumakuma abaganda wano n'okulaba engeri gye twongera okusupportingamu obwakabaka bwaffe. So every Torontonian atanaba registering, reach out to the Wechitiibwa or registering tusobole okulaba nga May 2 wali kukata spark. I think that makes sense.
Makes sense. Era ngenda kuggalawo n'akalango kankalina wano kankakube.
Abantu ba Kabaka mu ssaza Canada mwenna mujje twetabe mu misinde gy'amazaalibwa ga Ssaabasajja Kabaka empologoma ya Buganda Sseggwanga Ronald Mwenda Mutebi w'okubiri 2023 nga tumuyozaliza okutuuka ku mazaalibwa ge ag'emyaka 68 ku mulamu ogugamba nti mental health awareness n'okulwanyisa obulwadde bwa mukenenya na lubiri n'ekikulukuto mu bakyala. Emisinde gino gyakubaawo ku Saturday ng'ennaku z'omwezi 2 omwezi ogwokutaano omwaka guno ku ssaawa 4 ez'okumakya okutuuka ku ssaawa 12 ez'olweggulo ku Mary Katz Park at 242nd Street, Entobiko, Picnic Area 1. Omugenyi omukulu agenda okusimbula emisinde gino ye Weekitiibwa Joseph Kawuki, Minisita omubeezi wa gavumenti ez'ebitundu n'okulambula kwa Kabaka era avunaanyizibwa ku nsonga z'abantu ba Kabaka ababeera ebweru. Okwewandiisa, famire esasula $5 ate omuntu ssekinnoomu $20. Emijoozi gy'omwaka guno 2023 gyojja $20 zokka. Ku lunaku luno watikikiddwawo n'omusomo ogunaatambulira ku mulamwa gw'emisinde ogw'omwaka guno ogugamba nti mental health awareness, supporting our children, supporting our family and friends, supporting each other. Ng'omusomo guno gwakubeera ku mutimbagano gwa Zoom. Tubayita okubeera basponsa b'emisinde gino nga muwaayo mu busobozi bwammwe. Okuwaayo kujja kubeera mu mitendera gino: general sponsorship $50, silver $115, gold $250, diamond $350 ate platinum oyo taliiko olupimo lusembayo. Wajja kubaawo okugabula omucomo n'ebyokulya ebirala ng'emisinde giwedde. Ng'okozesa e-transfer tuusa ssente zo ng'oweereza eri Omulangira Francis Kigayaaza ku email kayizi63@gmail.com oba essimu 647-803-872 oba eri omulongo Brenda Nakato ku email brendanakato44@yahoo.com ne ku ssimu 416-835-8M74. Bw'oba n'ekibuuzo kyonna tuukirira omubaka Estera Muyinda ku email enmuyinda.okrcanda@gmail.com. Tubakoowoola mwenna mujje mu misinde gya Kabaka n'abaana ab'emikwano n'eŋŋanda zammwe zonna. Tunaasanyuka okubalaba mwenna nga mwetabye mu misinde gya nnyinimu Ssaabasajja Kabaka. Tubalindiridde.